Welcome back. In this video, we're going to look at valuation models. And valuation methods typically fall into two main categories, and that's the absolute valuation and the relative valuation. Now, under relative valuation, we are saying relative models operate by comparing the company in question to other similar companies. Right? These methods generally involve calculating multiples or ratios, such as the price to earnings multiple, and comparing them to multiples of other comparable companies. So, for example, you might want to value, say, the Apple share, and the, say, for instance, the Samsung, and you might also have Nokia on the other side. So companies that are basically in a related field, and then you're saying you calculate the PE ratio for each company, and then you compare it with its peers in the same industry. So these companies need to be in a similar industry so that the comparison can make sense. So, for instance, if the PE of the firm you are trying to value is lower than the PE multiple of a comparable firm, that company may be said to be relatively undervalued. Right. So, a lower PE generally means that the company is undervalued. But you should not only take the PE on face value, you should also then start considering other factors that might make the company give a lower PE ratio. These factors might have to do with the specific fundamentals, non-financial fundamentals of the company. You might also need to look at that because investors normally factor all those in. So the PE ratio of a company, if the PE ratio is lower for a company, it means the company is undervalued, and if it is higher than its peers, it might mean the company is overvalued, or it can also mean that investors have a preference for that company, right? A lower PE, in other words, it can also show that investors are not interested in buying the shares of that company at that particular moment. So generally, this type of valuation is a lot easier and quicker to do than the absolute valuation method, which is why many investors and analysts start their analysis with this method. So this is the first method you should do when you are trying to value a company. Start off with the PE ratio, calculate the PE ratio of the company, and see and compare it to the peers of the other companies in the industry. If the PE ratio is good enough, then you might actually start considering looking into other methods so that you complement the PE valuation method. Because on its own, it is good, but not enough for you to just invest based on the PE ratio. For example, if you see a lower PE and then you say the company is undervalued, therefore I'm snapping the share. What can actually you need to understand the factors that might make the company undervalued, or that might make investors not want to buy the shares of the company. It's very important for you to know that. All right. So now we move on to absolute valuation methods. And absolute valuation models attempt to find the intrinsic or true value of an investment based only on fundamentals. Now, this kind of method does not look at what other companies' values are. We only look at the fundamentals of the company at hand. We don't care what other companies are doing. We just look at the financial information of that company only. We don't compare it to anything. That is, we are looking at the cash flows of the company, the dividends of the company, and stuff like that. The balance sheet information, that's what we're considering. Only stuff relevant to that particular company. Looking at fundamentals simply means you would only focus on such things as dividends, cash flows, growth rate for a single company, and not worry about any other company. Right. Valuation models that fall into this category include the dividend discount model, discounted cash flow models, residual income models, and asset-based models. Right. So all these type of methods that we have mentioned here 4 under absolute valuation models, where we look at the um, fundamentals, the intrinsic, the fundamentals of only this company at hand. So we can look, we can use either the discounted cash flow model, the dividend discount model, the residual income model, and the asset-based models. All these are absolute valuation methods. They only look at one company at a time. Now, our focus areas in this course are going to be the frequently used methods, and that is the PE ratio, which is a comparative method. We have the dividend growth model, which is an absolute method, and we'll also look at free cash flow valuation method, which is another absolute valuation method. So these are going to be our key areas that we'll focus on, and we'll dig deep into all the situations where you can use these ratios. Simply because these are the frequently used ratios in the market, and usually you can easily find enough information for you to use these ratios. Let's meet again in our future videos as we continue to explore investment. Thank you.